Hello, my name is Britt, and I am so glad that you are joining me today to learn about Shallwo Blackout, awareness and prevention of the silent killer. My name is Britt Jackson, and I am the executive director of the organization Shallwo Blackout Prevention, and I'm coming to you from Augusta, Georgia, in USA. Let me tell you a little bit about our organization. Shallwo Blackout Prevention is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are based in Atlanta, Georgia. Our mission is to prevent senseless deaths as a result of shallow blackout through awareness and education. Again, my name is Britt. I'm the executive director, and I'd also like to introduce you to Dr. Rhonda Milner, who is our founder and chairman. She's not on the call, but I want to introduce you to her and the Milner family and allow you to see why this organization was formed to begin with. It is their son, Whitner Milner.
Well, I had never heard of shallow water blackout before our son died, and he had gotten interested in spearfishing. The whole goal was for them to be able to try and spearfish for the longest period of time. Our son was the sort of young man that when he got focused on something, he'd hyper-focus on it, and he'd try to be the very best he could. When I walked out there, and the first thing I saw was Whitner on the bottom of the pool, and it's like our brains can't sort of take all that in. When I first saw him, I thought, well, I found Whitner. He's practicing breath holding, and then I, tried to stir him, and then realized I couldn't, and then I jumped in with all my clothes on to try to pull him up. I couldn't physically get him up at all. So that's when I came in the house and called 911 and then called my daughter to come back.
People don't know this, but shallow water blackout is a huge problem that kills many healthy individuals. When these people die, water enters their lungs, and the coroners say they died due to drowning. The physiology is pretty complex, and it's a combination of blowing off your carbon dioxide, which is the trigger mechanism to breathe, and then using up all your oxygen so that you cannot support consciousness, and so you black out.
If a lifeguard was supervising a pool, I think the only way they'd probably end up detecting it is that they'd realize the person had been underwater too long, because basically then there's just no movement. It's very quiet. There's nothing visually to observe until finally they just start to drift over and sink to the bottom of the pool.
The three criteria for shallow water blackout are breath holding that is competitive, either against the clock, against yourself, or against someone else. It's repetitive. And then finally, over-breathing. Over-breathing, either hyperventilating on your own voluntarily or through strenuous exercise where you're over-breathing.
It's not, like I say, just the elite athlete. It's anyone who breath holds underwater. It can happen.
Drowning is so difficult to detect. It's a very quick, silent, subtle process that really lasts about 2 minutes. And oftentimes parents and lifeguards simultaneously will watch children drown. So they see the child drowning, but they're thinking the child is playing in the water. And that's why swimming pools really have to be very, very vigilant, not only well guarded, but well managed and well signed.
I think the signage makes people wonder, well, why can't I breath hold? And then they'll start to understand, through the education about how dangerous it is. I would have never dreamed in a million years that Whitner would have gone out into our backyard and killed himself, basically, in our pool. And with no intention at all. He loved life. And believe me, he would not have done that if he thought he was going to die.
So what is shallow water blackout? And I want to note at this time that shallow water blackout has also been referred to as hypoxic blackout. So you might hear both terms, and according to our experts, they are one and the same. It's an underwater faint due to lack of oxygen to the brain, brought on by holding your breath for long periods of time. Without immediate rescue, the swimmer quickly drowns. How does it happen? Shallow water blackout occurs when a person overexerts themselves physically and then stays underwater too long. Their body runs out of the chemical that tells them to breathe, so their brain does not know that they are about to faint until it's too late. Now, we have been told by those who have survived shallow water blackout that it can feel like they've reached some type of barrier, they've broken through, and they feel like they can hold their breath forever. And then the next thing they know, or the next thing they remember, is waking up in a hospital or being resuscitated on a pool deck. This does not happen to people like me who just lounge by the pool. We are very, I call ourselves summer people, and we love to hang out at the pool and the beach. And I'm not at risk for shallow water blackout. The people that we see who generally have been victims are elite athletes, people who are training hard and pushing themselves, competitive swimmers. And we'll get into that some more. But also, I want to note here that this is a very generalized version of the definition of a shallow water blackout. If you would like to learn more about the chemistry in your body that takes place and what actually happens and what chemicals and the names, and to go more in depth with this, please visit our website. There's so much information there for you. Most victims are exceptional swimmers and exceptional athletes, and they're pushing themselves to the next levels. Most victims. It is especially seen in competitive swimmers, Navy SEALs, snorkelers, spear fishermen, and free divers. We also see it happen with children who are playing breath-holding games or staying underwater, swimming back and forth in the pool. The bottom line is that no one is protected from succumbing to a shallow water blackout. Is there a time that this typically happens? Well, we can tell you that it happens without any warning. It does not discriminate. Because of the hypoxia and detached mental state, one can feel euphoric and empowered. This is what we've been told. And they just continue the breath hold. And unlike regular drowning, where there can be 6 to 8 minutes before brain damage and death, there's only 2.5 minutes before brain damage or death occurs, because the brain has already been heavily deprived of oxygen. And I would say, from what we have learned as an organization over the past several years, 2.5 minutes is generous. You may not have that long. Where does it happen? So it can happen in any body of water: pool, lake, river, bathtub, anywhere where prolonged breath holding underwater is taking place. Even if lifeguards are on duty, there's still a great risk, because shallow water blackout is impossible to detect above water. I'm going to give you some examples of this further on in this presentation. But Dr. Tom Griffiths, who you saw in the video previously, he has done extensive research on this, and it has been proven that a lifeguard cannot see a shallow water blackout happening above the surface of the water. It's impossible. You can watch a person drown and not know. And this has happened many times. So we'll cover that a little bit more in the presentation. Why does this happen? It occurs due to lack of education, awareness, and understanding of the dangers of breath holding. We should all be made aware of the danger and how to prevent these incidences. Now, if we were live and I could see you and talk to you, I would ask the group, who here has heard of Shallwo blackout? And who here knows what it is? And who here knows someone who's experienced it? And oftentimes, and I have spoken to huge groups, one in particular, a safety compliance group at a government setting, no one had ever heard of it. It is not widely publicized, which is why we exist. So what can we learn from the victims? I'm going to give you some examples and talk about some people that we have learned of over the years and what we can learn from the accidents that happened with them. Staff Sergeant Joe Carreri, he was an exceptional athlete, a powerful, expert swimmer. He grew up on the West Coast in Orange County, and he grabbed some flippers and was searching for some lost items at the bottom of a lake. And he went down too many times without resting and letting his body replenish oxygen, and he drowned. He just faded down and just never resurfaced. And so what we can learn from this is that shallow water blackout affects elite athletes. Tim Wilt was an amazing swimmer, and he was trying to set another personal record for holding his breath. He fainted underwater, and although he was resuscitated poolside, he passed away due to brain damage a few weeks later. And what we can learn from Tim is that shallow water blackout affects seasoned breath holders. Jack McMillan is a 12-year-old who lost his life practicing breath holding in his family pool. His mother was sitting poolside with her feet in the water, hanging on to a toddler, and she didn't know. She didn't know that he had fainted, and she thought he was just holding his breath a really long time. And what we can learn from this is that shallow water blackout can affect children playing breath holding games, and it's undetectable from above the surface. His mother just didn't know. And I want to speak about this for a moment because my son is 7 years old. His name's Finley. We call him Finn, and it turned out to be slightly prophetic because he believes he's a fish, I think, and he loves to swim. He loves the water. He stays under the water. If we're at the pool, and especially in the ocean, he puts his goggles on and he loves to be underwater, and it gives his mother a heart attack quite regularly. But I know, because I understand what a shallow water blackout is, thank God, I know to keep a close eye on him, number one, even though he's a great swimmer, but number two, to monitor how long he has been going up and down and surfacing and resurfacing. And I have him stop and sit by the side of the pool and have a rest and replenish his oxygen levels in his body. And I know to do this, and more parents need to know to do this for our exceptionally great swimmers. Benjo Haller died. He was the age of 27 off the shore of the Bahamas. Benjo was an incredible athlete and sailor. He had refurbished a boat and was sailing and living his best life. And he was practicing breath holding to prepare for spearfishing, much like Whitner. And what we can learn from this is to never swim alone, never hold your breath or have practicing breath holding drills alone. Always have someone in the water with you, watching you and monitoring you if you are participating in this activity. If you notice people doing this at your pool or in your waterfront area, make sure that they have someone watching them specifically and keeping a very close eye on them. If they're doing it at all, we don't recommend allowing it. If someone is, and you can't get them to stop the activity, they must be monitored one-on-one. You've heard Whitner's story. He was getting ready for a spearfishing trip and was practicing his breath holding in the family pool. And what we can learn from Whitner is do not perform hypoxic training. I want to let you watch what Coach Bob Bowman and Michael Phelps have to say about shallow water blackout. Coach Bowman actually lost one of his very best swimmers to a shallow water blackout during a swim practice, and he has become an official spokesperson for our organization.
Head coach of the North Baltimore Aquatic Club. Swimming is a fun and healthy activity for children and adults of all ages and backgrounds. Under proper supervision and guidance, swimming is a safe and rewarding sport whose benefits can be enjoyed for a lifetime. However, there are some dangers that can occur. Shallow water blackout is a silent killer that can suddenly put even accomplished swimmers at risk. Today, we will look at the characteristics of this situation and learn some simple steps to prevent its occurrence. Please pay attention as my colleague, Dr. Alan Lake, describes shallow water blackout.
Thank you, Coach. Shallow water blackout, the major cause of drowning, death in experienced swimmers, is totally preventable by proper education and training techniques. It occurs in shallow water when the swimmer begins to swim underwater with a low level of carbon dioxide in his or her system. The carbon dioxide level is usually low due to recent hyperventilation as a result of completing a training exercise or from taking multiple deep breaths in an effort to swim further. During the interval underwater, the carbon dioxide level slowly rises, but not quickly enough to signal the brain to breathe, while the oxygen level falls rapidly and the swimmer faints underwater with no other symptoms or awareness of the need to breathe. Drowning is silent and immediate. The swimmers at greatest risk are accomplished swimmers. At the end of a training session, swimmers attempting extended underwater swims, often competing to see who can go the furthest, and swimmers alone in the pool or other bodies of water. Because the swimmer has a low oxygen level at the time of fainting, brain damage occurs within a couple of minutes, and death is very likely unless immediate resuscitation is undertaken.
Coaches and swimmers can prevent shallow water blackout by following these simple guidelines. Never swim alone and never ignore your urge to breathe while underwater. A certified lifeguard should be on duty whenever you are in the water. Do not attempt long or repetitive underwater swims or kicks for any reason, and only perform underwater training activities with the supervision and guidance of a USA Swimming member coach and with a certified lifeguard present. Never compete with other swimmers to see who can swim the farthest underwater or play breath-holding games. And finally, never hyperventilate before starting an underwater swim or kick. Coaches must ensure that proper recovery time exists between repeats of underwater work. These guidelines can help prevent shallow water blackout. Coaches should take the lead in educating swimmers and parents about this important information.
Swimming is a sport that gives us all a lifetime of enjoyment and health benefits. Please follow these guidelines and remember, if shallow water blackout occurs, it's often fatal. But through education and understanding, it can be 100% preventable. We'll see you at the pool.
So you heard them mention how to prevent shallow water blackout and several things that you can do to ensure that it does not happen in your pool or around your waterfront. And I want to review some of those with you now. So never hyperventilate before going and doing an underwater drill. Never swim or dive alone. Never practice prolonged underwater breath holding. And educate your friends, family, and athletic coaches. I want to give you some creative ways to do that. So the first thing that you can do for your pool deck or your waterfront, maybe for your gym, is to purchase signage. We have a partnership with Clarion, and they create these signs that have been working great across the United States and abroad. And you can access them by visiting Clarion's website. We recommend that you, if you feel so inclined, you can donate a sign to your local pool deck, where if be it your gym or your country club. And when you bring a sign and donate it, it gives you the opportunity to explain to your aquatics managers what shallow water blackout is and why they do not want to have one happen at their facility. This is Bailey Thomas. Bailey, here in the red shirt, he was 15 years old when he experienced a shallow water blackout during swim practice. And he, on his birthday, purchased signs and took them to the pool where he experienced his blackout. He donated the signs and put them up himself on the fences around the pool to inform people about shallow water blackout. Our partner, Tom Griffiths, has some things to say about pool signs that I want to share with you.
When you go to a pool, you'll see 18 to 24 rules and regulations. And the most vitally important rules and regulations, those warnings that are going to keep guests happy and safe, are hidden between no smoking, no glass, no eating on the pool deck. There's only 3 or 4 things that we really want to emphasize at a swimming pool environment. The most important warnings. These warnings take care of 90% of the liability at the pool, are for parents to watch their children closely. If parents are reminded to watch their children and watch them actively, not passively in a lounge chair, but actively, the chance of drowning, we know, is significantly reduced. Secondly, another sign we want is that non-swimmers should wear life jackets. Even in shallow water pools that are 5 feet deep, a child under the age of 12 will drown if they don't know how to swim. We have to warn the public about not diving into water. You need a minimum of 9 feet of water when you dive from a swimming pool deck to be perfectly safe. And one of the less frequently used signs in the United States, but it's probably the most important sign, is that we should not allow any extended breath holding for long periods of time, particularly when it's done many times over and over again. It's a combination of blowing off your carbon dioxide, which is the trigger mechanism to breathe, and then using up all your oxygen so that you cannot support consciousness. And so you black out, you aspirate water, and then you drown quickly. One of the problems with hotels and resort type pools is theming and branding and color coding the signs that blend in with the ambiance of the resort. And while this looks pretty and this is nice, it tends to camouflage the warnings. They have to come off the page and come alive rather than just blending in with the theme or the color coding of the hotel. You can take the most important warnings, use the appropriate shapes and colors, and place them on a nicely done sign where the perimeter of that larger sign is themed to blend in with the ambience of the hotel or resort. All pools have a duty to warn because the water does present a significant hazard and risk to guests who are unaware. The data shows year in and year out that the number of people who drown in America is significant, about 4,000 people each and every year. We're not looking at minor injuries. We don't want to sign everything. If we sign everything, then a guest doesn't read anything. But we just want to warn against the big losses, against death, paralysis, and huge financial losses for that aquatic facility.
The next thing that you can do to help us prevent shallow water blackout is to report incidences. We have a form on our website where if you experienced one yourself, or if you know someone who has, or if you witness one in the future, the data is so important. This is a silent killer, as we've said, and many times these drownings are not reported because, number one, people don't know what a shallow water blackout is, and number two, they don't take the time to report it if they did. So the more proof that we have that these are taking place, the more we can do to further our prevention efforts. The next thing you can do is make a presentation. I have a picture here of some students who are making a presentation at their school. However, adults can do this as well. Before I was the director of this organization, I made presentations for safety groups and aquatics facilities. I reached out to the aquatics manager at our local gym and asked if I could come during the lifeguard training to give a presentation about shallow water blackout, and they were happy to allow me to do that. It's an easy thing to do, and we have resources on our website to help you to make those presentations, free PowerPoints and different collateral that you might need. And if we don't have what you need, please reach out to me and I will make sure that we can accommodate you. The next thing that you can do is become an ambassador. We have ambassadors all over the world. This is Layla, our Miami ambassador, and she has done so much work in that territory for spreading awareness. And she is at an exhibition in Florida here, and you can see that she has some brochures and some promotional items, and we have those to supply you with as well. We give to our ambassadors so that they are able to leave the people they're speaking with something tangible to hold on to and to remember about shallow water blackout and what it is. Our ambassadors are a dynamic group of people, and this also looks really great on a college application. So we have many high school seniors who do their senior projects on shallow water blackout, or use their volunteer time to canvass areas and to set up events like this and show up and educate people about the dangers. Corporate and private sponsorship opportunities are available with our organization. We need support to be able to spread awareness and to network. And we're working on a big project right now that I'm going to share with you. But if you would like to partner with us in support of this endeavor, we would love to speak with you. You could also host a showing of our short film that is going to be released in just a few months in spring, early 2022. The story of Chandler Watson. Chandler was vacationing with his family and playing in the pool, a breath-holding game, and he experienced a shallow water blackout, and they had a hard time bringing him back. He did survive though, and thank goodness. And his family has taken on the project of creating a short film about the accident, and so that they can raise awareness and share with people how dangerous this is. His sister Gabrielle wrote in and told us the story, and this is just a little piece of it that I want to read to you because it's very powerful and it explains exactly what happens when a shallow water blackout happens, what it looks like. So I'm going to read it to you. On July 3rd, 2020, we were on a family vacation on an island in North Carolina. Myself, my dad, and Chandler were all swimming in the resort pool, playing the familiar game of seeing how far we could swim from one end of the pool to the other without taking a breath. Mom, Addie, and Aaron were watching from their pool chairs. Graham had just left the pool to get out of the sun for the day. Chan said he could go from one end to the other without taking a breath. Understand, this is a game we play all the time, so nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Chan grabbed scuba goggles and was off underwater, and he did it, going from pool end to pool end without a breath. After Chan touched the wall, he stayed underwater, sitting at the bottom. My dad and I saw bubbles at the surface and thought that he was just seeing how much longer he could last holding his breath. My mother was visibly worried and upset. Thank God for mother's intuition, and started saying, someone needs to get him up now. My dad and I insisted he was fine as we saw bubbles come to the surface of the pool. About 20 seconds passed, and finally, Dad went to pull Chandler up and instantly knew something was wrong. He was limp and lifeless, and the second my dad lifted him up, we saw his gray skin and blue lips. Chandler's heart had stopped. My dad immediately started mouth to mouth in the pool as we carried his lifeless body to the stairs. Mom screamed for help, and Aaron and Addie got up in shock. Once we got to the stairs, there was a man who let us know he was an ICU doctor. He immediately started chest compressions on Chandler, yelling out that he didn't have a pulse. In the midst of all of this happening, another doctor who was a cardiologist came over and assisted. Between the compressions and mouth to mouth, they pumped and worked on him for what felt like a lifetime. I cannot put into words how traumatic this was to witness. This went on for 5 minutes. Chandler's body was not responding, with no heartbeat, no pulse. He did survive, thankfully. And we will be releasing a short film about this incident with tons of information and a special guest, Michael Phelps, to share about his experience and his support of our organization and just how important this is to know, to understand for competitive swimmers, for elite athletes moving forward. So again, I want to thank you for your time and your attention today. I know that because you took time to watch this, that lives will be saved. If you have any questions at all, please reach out. Here's our website, shallwaterblackoutprevention.org. And you can always reach out to me anytime. And I'm happy to partner with you to help spread awareness and education about shallow water blackout prevention.